In the spirit of Halloween, I thought it'd be fun to talk about. That's right, you guessed it, the Halloween aesthetic. This is a very iconic aesthetic that many people seamlessly integrate into their lives every year, especially through decorations. This has led to some pretty insane displays of Halloween appreciation, with front yard decorations stealing the spotlight almost every year because someone made their display a little too graphic for the normies' taste. But why pumpkins and masks and costumes? What is the Halloween aesthetic all about, and why have so many people fallen in love with the holiday and the vibe it brings? Today, I'll hope to shed some insight on those questions by taking a look at some of the areas where the Halloween aesthetic has influenced society the most. First, we should get some background on Halloween and how it came about in the first place. A long time ago, before Halloween was established, the ancient Celtic festival, known as Samhain, was celebrated from the 31st of October to the 1st of November and was meant to mark the start of the darker half of the Celtic New Year. It was also believed to be the time where the veil between the spirit world and the corporeal world was at its thinnest, allowing for spirits and other entities to cross over and walk among us. Though, while you may see that and immediately think, oh wow, Samhain was basically Halloween and Dia de los Muertos put together. Well, you'd be partially right, but it's important to note that Samhain and Halloween have very distinct purposes. Halloween was established as more of a fun and entertainment-centered holiday that focused particularly on the youth, while Samhain was meant specifically to reconnect with ancestors and deceased loved ones. In all reality, it's closer to Dia de los Muertos than it is Halloween, but I digress. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III established All Saints' Day on November 1st, directly coinciding with Samhain and leading to the eventual integration of some of the traditions observed during Samhain. This would then eventually change so that October 31st was referred to as All Hallows' Eve, eventually then being shortened to Hallowmas, and then later, Halloween. Like I mentioned before, Samhain was a Celtic festival. So when Irish immigrants were escaping the Great Famine of the 1840s, aka the Potato Famine, they brought their cultural traditions with them. This integration of traditions within the New World would eventually lead to the holiday that we're all familiar with, Halloween. Jumping ahead to the 1930s, Halloween began to adopt new traditions and customs that would continue to be observed year after year. Perhaps the most popular and iconic of these traditions is trick-or-treating. It wasn't always looked at that favorably though, as it's around the 1930s when trick-or-treating was more commonly associated with threats and vandalism against homes. But this wouldn't always be the main focus, as Halloween had become a popular children's holiday in the United States and pranks were switched for candy. This has continued to evolve, especially nowadays, as Halloween went from being focused to celebrating and honoring your ancestors and other deceased loved ones to being considered a children's holiday dominated by candy and costumes, and now in recent years has been considered a holiday focused on partying and entertainment. Of course, Samhain didn't disappear. There are still Celtic nations that celebrate Samhain more so as one of the main seasons. These other seasons include Imbolg, Bealtaine, and Lunasa. Traditionally observed in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man, it is also celebrated in places like Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany where they have their Brittonic equivalents. Other places like Galicia, Asturias, and northern Portugal celebrate Samhain as a revitalized tradition with magostos, an event where hot chestnuts, local wine, and sausages are shared. These festivals are oftentimes held in a forest. In fact, other cultures have holidays and celebrations similar to Samhain, the most iconic of these being Dia de los Muertos being celebrated in Mexico and other parts of Central America. Typically celebrated on November 1st or 2nd, with dates varying between October 31st and November 6th, Dia de los Muertos involves welcoming the spirits of deceased loved ones back home with colorful and beautifully decorated altars adorned with ofrendas of food and beverages, pictures, flowers, candles, and, of course, there are family gatherings held here as well. Of course, it's important to note that Dia de los Muertos is not Halloween or related to it, but I bring it up because it's fascinating to see how much an ancient Celtic festival from the 8th century has continued to evolve and change through different cultures as it gets adopted by different people. So we've got the history of the holiday out of the way, let's move on to the actual aesthetics of the holiday. Starting with the most memorable of them all, pumpkins! Pumpkins are the most easily recognizable part of the Halloween aesthetic and season. In fact, the majority of pumpkin sales are in October. Of the 1.5 billion pounds of pumpkins that are planted, 800 million are sold every year. Most of the time, these pumpkins are carved and turned into jack-o'-lanterns. But a lot of times, they can also be painted a variety of colors, including neutrals like beige or tan, or colors that tend to stand out more, like black, white, and even purple. Pumpkins weren't always used for decoration though, as the traditional jack-o'-lantern started out as turnips. Yeah, turnips. Honestly, these look more terrifying than pumpkins do, and they should also be added into the usual Halloween decorations, because I mean, look at this thing.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
The reason turnips were used instead of pumpkins is due to the abundancy of turnips over in the British Isles and Celtic nations, whereas here in the United States, pumpkins are vastly more accessible. But in terms of folklore, the original legend of Stingy Jack told the story of a man who was cursed to roam the earth for all eternity after trying to trick the devil. In order for the man to light his way and be able to see, the devil gave Jack burning coal to place inside of a hollowed-out turnip. Turnips were also used as they were thought to ward off evil spirits and apparitions, and since they were abundant, they were significantly cheaper to use as lanterns instead of purchasing a metal lantern. Nowadays, people buy pumpkins and carve them with things like the classic jack-o'-lantern smile, a scary or silly face, or art like ghosts, witches, and black cats. Some of these pumpkins can get extremely intricate and creative, and the shadows they cast when a light is placed inside of them look fantastic. Here's some pumpkins I carved with my parents last year. Aside from pumpkins, we also have candy. Candy has always been one of the most anticipated treats from the holiday, and trick-or-treating is something many people look forward to as Halloween nears. You may be surprised to know that the concept of trick-or-treating actually dates back as far as the 16th century, mainly originating from Scotland and Ireland as Samhain would continue to evolve. Back then, trick-or-treating was known as guising, but the concept was very similar. Kids would dress up and go from house to house reciting verses in exchange for food and warning of misfortune if they're not welcomed. The earliest recorded guising event here in North America was in 1911, where children in Ontario, Canada would begin to adopt the tradition. A few years later, in 1917, the phrase trick-or-treat would be coined and widely adopted, except in Scotland and Ireland, where they began saying trick-or-treat in the 2000s. Before this, children would say, "help the Halloween party," which sounds more like solicitation and is probably why they decided trick-or-treat would be better to say. But back then, dressing up was still a custom that was observed. A lot of these costumes focused more on what is traditionally thought of as scary, like skeletons, ghosts, spirits, etc. Let's get more into the actual fashion and costumes of the Halloween aesthetic. When talking about Halloween fashion, most people immediately think of the black and orange color scheme that is very synonymous with Halloween. But given the fact that Halloween is a season that takes place in the fall, it's not uncommon to see other colors from the fall palette. These include the ones I mentioned before, like beige, tan, black, white, and purple. But there's even green and, of course, the most prominent color of all, orange. Within the fashion itself, there's a lot of variety. They're usually fall clothes like sweaters, leggings, and the like, but they all tend to include motifs like pumpkins, skeletons, or witches and cats. The most common aesthetic types that incorporate Halloween motifs into their fashion are the goth and vintage aesthetic community, due to their shared overlap of horror enthusiasts and novelty prints and accessories. Then you have the other side of Halloween fashion, the costumes. The costumes can vary and range from last-minute put-together costumes to professional handmade costumes that were ordered tailor-made for the wearer. But costumes have been a part of Halloween since the days when it was called Samhain. Of course, nobody was dressing up as Ghostface with this hyped-up mask and the heart-squeezy thing, or Pyramid Head in the 16th century. Back then, costumes traditionally featured animal skins and heads, sometimes even featuring ancient spirits and deities like the White Mare. Men would also dress up as women, and sometimes there would be racially themed costumes, which were very bad, and I'm not going to show. But as time has gone on, the costumes have evolved in theme and complexity. Nowadays, cosplayers seem to have the most fun when it comes to creating costumes and outfits for Halloween. Cosplayers aren't the only ones who get joy out of dressing up. Children obviously dress up in costumes referencing their favorite media, and this can include things like Transformers, Marvel characters, Disney princesses, etc. When it comes to adults, however, there's really not much variety out of the usual stuff like vampires, witches, nurses, black cats, or cops. Many of these costumes are also very revealing, which a lot of people may not feel comfortable with. This is usually why people often turn to making their own costumes. It's also cheaper than having to buy a new costume every year, as the components of the homemade costumes often include makeup and clothes you already own or can easily access or buy. And the clothes can be worn year-round. Anything can be a costume if you really think about it. People dress up as monsters from horror movies, characters from popular shows, memes and other pop culture figures and references, animals, and even the idea of a non-costume being a costume is something you'll see. All of it is an opportunity for people to get creative and express themselves, something that is very foundational to art. Halloween art is specific to one holiday and aesthetic, obviously, but the variety of pieces people can create from these motifs is quite striking. Many people like to take Halloween and add their own twist to it and create subgenres like Neon Halloween, which is Halloween aesthetic imagery using neon vibrant colors, rather than the traditional Halloween palette we're used to. This is my favorite subgenre of the Halloween aesthetic, with my favorite second being the cute Halloween subgenre, a subgenre that features vibrant and pastel colors with cute characters mixed with Halloween motifs. But the Halloween aesthetic has been heavily used in a lot of popular media, either as a setting or as part of the plot. Take the Halloween movies, for instance, a franchise whose main plot focuses on Michael Myers hunting for his victims on Halloween night. There are even shows and games who lean into the Halloween festivities and have Halloween-themed specials or events happening, all themed around a scary or comedic premise that is happening to the main characters. In the case of games, fun Halloween-themed events with minigames and themed cosmetics are a common thing to look forward to in online games like Destiny 2 or casual games like Animal Crossing. Even Roblox games have Halloween-themed events. This game I love to idle on, Pet Simulator 99, just recently put out their latest update with a haunted backrooms themed event world for Halloween. For shows, the Halloween episode of SpongeBob, where he's trying to find the perfect Halloween costume, is one example. Patrick wants to help him, so he commits an atrocity to get him to look as accurate to a ghost as possible.
You sure you want to do this?
Shave me down, make me round.
The Tim Burton movies are also known for having that creepy and spindly look to their characters, which only adds to that Halloween association. I'm pretty sure people are still arguing whether The Nightmare Before Christmas is a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie. Don't ask me, I have no skin in the game. Halloween is also heavily embraced in places like the tattoo industry and the nail industry. Anybody who has ever been to a tattoo shop, for instance, knows that many shops will have flash sales on designs that are Halloween themed. There's also the concept of Halloween themed nails that can get pretty extravagant. All in all, Halloween is a really fun holiday, and I think it's one that has been losing its magic and charm over the years. I miss the days of dressing up and going out to trick-or-treat, seeing all the houses decorated with lights and pumpkins, spiderwebs, and getting to be around the community on a chilly fall night felt unmatched in terms of holiday feelings. Every holiday has that special feeling. That feeling you get where you're like, this is what the holiday is supposed to feel like. For Christmas, it's being around those you love and celebrating being with each other, giving gifts and receiving them. New Year's has the melancholic feeling of saying goodbye to the current year and welcoming in the new year with a smile. Halloween's feeling has been fading though. It's much different now than it was even as recently as a few years ago, for a reason I won't name, but I'm sure everybody knows by now. While that old Halloween feeling might not ever be coming back, there's nothing stopping us from creating a new Halloween feeling. And you can start this year. Decorate your house, buy Halloween candy, dress up, even if it's a shitty costume. Feel the magic again. Because we're only getting older and the change starts with us, so that the people who grow up after we're gone can continue to celebrate a fun holiday with their community. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm currently in the middle of working on a lot of different videos, so uploads may be sporadic, but I think it'll be worth it. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for my channel so you're notified the next time I upload a new video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you take care, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye! Happy Halloween!